Welcome to CareyBrosPros, the podcast for construction pros by construction pros, because your client satisfaction is the best paycheck. Now, here are James and Morris Carey.
So good to have you with us for another episode of CareyBrosPros. Hi, I'm Morris.
And I'm James. And being remodelers and business owners, we know how stressful juggling the business side can be. Take it from us. And that's why from time to time, we like to chat with folks who specialize on the business side.
But it isn't often we find someone who is both a remodeler and a business coach, which is what we have in our guest today. Joining us is Dominic Rubino, podcaster and business coach with CabinetmakerProfitSystem.com. Dominic, good to have you joining us here on CareyBrosPros.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
So, Dominic, I'm dying to know first, how did you come up with the name CabinetmakerProfitSystem.com?
That's a good question. I set out to have the longest domain name that could be as specific as possible.
That's great.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting, and it's a lesson for all of us in business, is that identifying who your ideal client is and focusing really, really specifically on them, and then adding value to that group of the world is, there's nothing better. And so I work with cabinet makers and architectural mill workers and cabinet dealers as well, on showing them the business of business and how to apply that to their company.
The website says, Cabinet Makers, double your income, double your time off. And you also say you run a great woodwork shop and you want to make more money and work less, right? That's why people work with you. That's one of those closed-end questions that always gets the right answer, which is yes. So
you can see I've done this before.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important. So I want to know a little bit more and to share with our audience on how you make that happen for pros that are listening. But first, I would love it if you would begin by telling us a bit about the home that you remodeled, which we understand was originally built in 1894.
Yeah, 1893, actually, believe it or not.
So call me a liar. Call me a liar for a year, Dominic.
No. You know what? We have not been able to find accurate documentation at the city to tell us when the home was built, because the home was built as part of the founding of our province. And a province is the same as a state in the United States, and, Australia and New Zealand have their own terms for those things. But up here, what you'd call a state, like Washington State, well, we're just north of that in a place called British Columbia.
Yes.
And the capital of British Columbia was New Westminster at the beginning. But they didn't keep very good records. And so we found the date for the building of our house because a brick in one of the fireplaces was put in backwards. And it has the date stamped in it.
Wow.
I'll be darned.
Oh, that is very cool.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful home. It was built by the Chief Justice of this area. So that's the boss of all the judges. And he also started the railway line that connects the southern part of our area here. So he was a very well-to-do gentleman, but his job was actually getting the documentation in order, and that job did not include putting his own home on the list. So that's how we got the date.
So when did you acquire it? Tell us a little bit about the size and style, and what have you done with it?
Oh, man. So this is actually, they're referred to as heritage homes here. And I think in some other places they are called century homes, et cetera. And I live in a neighborhood called Queens Park, and this whole area is full of heritage homes. And I really do have to give a nod to the city of New Westminster for many, many years ago taking a very forward-looking step and saying we should save these homes. Because in the 60s and 70s, they were just looked at as an eyesore. And a lot of them got torn down and, merged together to be apartment blocks and modern homes put on. But they saved this area. So anyways, we bought this home about 10 years ago. And my wife is actually, I'm the labor and she's the brains. So I just break the walls where she tells me to break them, and I carry stuff out where she tells me to put it. And then we have experts come in, cabinet makers, countertop tilers, et cetera, and they do the work for us.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, that little parable about my wife is the thinker and I'm the worker.
Viewer.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's called the bourgeoisie and the proletariat.
Yeah.
in other literature.
Very good. Okay, so let's get into a bit of the business coaching side of what you do, Dominic. I'd imagine that most people find something they enjoy and they're good at, remodeling, cabinetry, landscaping, and then start a business offering their skills, but they quickly find themselves on a hamster reel.
Yeah, a hamster wheel.
Between making bids, answering calls, doing the project, the bookkeeping, the marketing, etc. How should they avoid that?
Well, it's all too true, by the way. You nailed it right on the head. We get into the business of doing what we know how to do, and then we get busy and we hire a person, then we hire another person, and before you know it, we've got a crew, and that crew needs more work, so we go get more work, and before you know it, we've got something called a company that's bigger than ourselves. And one of the most important steps you can take, whether you do anything at all, is to start putting systems in place in your business. And that is, have consistent ways of doing things so that you get consistent results at the end. And by the way, that's the same reason that cities have zoning bylaws or code bylaws, is because that consistent process, as much as we might hate it as tradespeople, guarantees a certain level of output. And that's all we need to do inside our businesses as well.
Wow. You make it sound too simple.
Well, it is that simple, and I have not heard that analogy before, but you're right. It is that simple. Boy, I can really get on that train.
Yeah.
So my question is, I know we hire employees so that we can do the office work, of course.
Yeah.
But what about hiring an employee? What's your advice there?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of questions in here, gentlemen. Are you ready?
That's a separate podcast.
Let's go,
go
baby.
ahead,
Let's go.
It.
No, but you know what? Let's do something. I'm going to answer your question by taking it in a different direction.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about the time value of money. And specifically, what's your hourly rate as a business owner? So it's super simple. We're going to assume, for the sake of assumption, that people listening to this podcast have the business of $1 million. They can be $500,000, they can be $250,000, they can be $250 million. It doesn't matter. The math is going to work out. It's very easy to do in your head. We'll assume as well that on average, as a business owner, by the way, this is where everybody starts laughing, is that a business owner works 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week for about 2,000 hours a year. Now, I know that's not true. They usually work more than that.
That's double it.
Double it. Yeah. Double it. Well, it's going to make things look worse, but you're right. We do need to double it. But then we just figure out what the hourly rate is from that, right?
Yeah.
So the rate per hour is 1 million divided by 2,000 hours. Some of your better listeners already know the math. That means your responsibility to the company is to be effective at the rate of $500 an hour.
Okay.
If you run $1 million business. So what does that mean in reality? That means if this podcast episode isn't valuable to you, hang up. It's no good. You need to go find something to do that's worth $500 because you have to drive that top line revenue back into the company. Please don't hang up, folks. They'll kick me off the podcast. But once we know that, it becomes so much easier for me to justify hiring a laborer or hiring a finisher who might actually make more per hour than my old finishing rate. Because my new finishing rate is $500 an hour. I have the company that needs to be productive at the rate of $500 an hour. So I'll start with that answer, see if that helps, and then we'll go back and hit the other questions.
Well, give us some more general information on how to, I'm assuming that you have advice on how to hire an employee. Yes? Yeah. No?
I do.
Okay.
So there are three things that we look for in an employee, and this isn't even my info. This is something called the Carnegie Triangle.
Okay.
Which many of our listeners will remember, the steel magnate Andrew Carnegie.
Right.
And he said that there are three components to hiring a perfect person for your team. And those three components are knowledge and skills and attitude. And I wonder if you guys want to take a stab at what you think the most important of the three would be, knowledge or skills or attitude.
Attitude,
no question.
Okay, hands down, yeah. As a matter of fact, on my website, there's a document called How to Hire for Attitude, including the interview scripts, like how to interview people looking for attitude. But attitude trumps everything. So before I hire somebody, man or woman, for my team, I have to make sure they have the right attitude.
So I need to get a copy of that. Where do I go to get a copy of that information on attitude? Because I love the thought of enlightening myself on that.
Sure. Well, so it's on the website, cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com.
Okay.
Longest domain name in the world.
Okay.
Other than, and then if you like, I can also email it to you, gentlemen, as well. If you want to use that as a resource for your listeners.
Yeah, please do. Morris@onthehouse.com.
Morris@onthehouse.com. I'll send it there.
Oh.
And you know what's interesting is that there's scripts. There's what to say as the business owner to run the interview to find out if the person has the right attitude. And we've broken the interview into 2 separate steps so that you as the owner don't waste your time with people that don't meet your minimum standards. You actually, script 1 goes to your administrator or your friend or perhaps your spouse who does that step 1 interview, and then you only get the top people, and you can make a decision from there and save yourself some time.
I love it. Cool.
Yeah, so Morris@onthehouse.com. I'll send it off.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Thank you so very, very much.
And of course, the goal in hiring employees is so that you can utilize your skill set to do administrative tasks and things that perhaps others can't. You might have a skilled tradesperson, for example, who is great at doing finished carpentry, but doesn't have particular strengths in sales or administrative duties. And so that's where hiring becomes important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hire administrative people instead and stay in the field, first, you lose grip on your company, and second, those people usually charge more than you can make.
That's right. They start running you, and you're no longer running the company.
That's right.
And some people like to stay on the tools. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody has to turn this into a huge business. That's not the point of life. The point of life is to do what you love and enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and to do it successfully enough so that you're not put under unusual stress, which sort of spoils it. So if you can do what you love and do it in a reasonably successful way, I think that's all that most people strive for. You know, everybody would like to be a billionaire, but not everyone is that enthusiastic about doing what it takes to become one. And so that's where the world of small business differentiates itself from the megacorps.
So here's one for you. We see, in, of course, our nearly 40 years in our market, we've seen businesses come and go, changes that occur. Maybe a new competitor comes into the picture, and you start to lose estimates. What do you recommend to folks listening who have that circumstance in their area where competition is heightened and maybe they're not getting as many leads or not making as many estimates as they once did?
Yeah, that does happen, and it's hard to pinpoint why it would be happening in each situation. But I'll go back to understanding your ideal client again. And your ideal client is somebody who, pays on time, buys what you produce. You like dealing with them, and they like dealing with you, and you know that you can provide value to them. So once you've got all those things set, understanding who your ideal client is makes it much easier to go after those people. So if you're finding that you're getting less bids in the market, focus more and more on the people who you like to do business with. And then, this one is going to be crazy for our listeners, pick up the phone. Call the person you want to do business with. And can I give you guys the script for how to open up that conversation?
Yeah,
please.
Okay. Hi, my name's Dominic. I really want to do business with you. When can we talk?
Yeah, of course. Shit, or get off the pot. Don't spend any time running around. Why? Be direct.
What's he going to say? No? If he says no, that's perfect. Good. Go on to the next one.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. Don't waste my time.
Right.
I love that. The direct approach is, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best way of doing business. The direct approach doesn't work with everyone, but I think it works with the preponderance of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as we do it in a nice and polite way, and I'm Canadian, so we're all polite up here, right?
Yeah. I love it.
But the truth is that if I'm dealing with my ideal client, I'll bet you they're a busy person. And they probably appreciate me getting to the point in a nice way. And if they say no, that's okay. I'll just move on. But if I dance around it, it becomes frustrating for the person on the other end of the line. And many years ago, when I learned professional selling, because I used to sell for in telecommunications, and when I left that, I actually began working with a gentleman by the name of Brian Tracy. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I ran Brian Tracy's business coaching franchise operation. We have 200 plus coaches around the world. And what I learned from Brian is that the direct approach is the most effective approach. In my old days, we used to try and build value in the first 7 seconds of the phone call and then ask for the appointment. And then for the next 7 seconds, if we didn't get it, we had to do it again.